All right, we got a doozy of a show for you guys tonight. Young Turks, host Jake Uger, that's me. We got an excellent TYT Investigate story for you guys. And then the Democratic Party back to its old dirty tricks. Great/terrible story on that about how they're trying to block progressives from winning races against their incumbents. Is blood boiling story, unfortunately. And then a couple of cases of, unfortunately, new sexual harassment, including Poppy, George H.W. Bush, this is George W. Bush's dad, who of course was president before him. As he would grab women's asses, what would he tell them? It's unfortunately slightly funny. Okay, so hold for that, that's in the second hour. And it obviously very wrong, don't get me wrong, okay? So don't miss a minute of the show. You guys know you wanna watch the whole show ad-free, tytnetwork.com/join. All right, let's start with fun. President Trump was talking to Lou Dobbs. It was a really gross interview of just basically ass kissing back and forth. But that's not the best part of the interview. I'm gonna show you the best part. It is when Donald Trump started talking about the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, okay? Buckle up, because there's no way he's not going to say something stupid, and boy does he deliver. Let's watch.
He's a powerful man. I happen to think he's a very good person. Now, with that being said, he represents China. I represent the USA. So, there's going to always be conflict. But we have a very good relationship. People say we have the best relationship of any president, because he's called president also. Now, some people might call him the king of China, but he's called president.
No one calls him the king of China. No one. That's not a thing that exists. Some people might call him the king of China, but he's actually a president. Did you know that? Yes, the rest of us already knew that. Can you tell what's actually happening here? He thought that the Chinese leader was a king. Oh God, he's just so stupid. But the funny part about it is how proud he is that he figured out before he went on television, 9 months into his presidency, that the leader of China is actually not a king, but a president. And he's like bragging about it, like, did you know that he's called president? Did you know that? Yes, we knew that. And the president of the United States of America should also know that. Or US of A, okay? And who says things like, people say we have the best relationship of any president. What does that mean? What do you? First of all, everything has to be the best. Remember in Puerto Rico, we had these big, beautiful, soft towels. Puerto Rico is surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. We have the best relationship of president. Oh my God, he's an absolute imbecile. And he's a very good person. Look, George W. Bush got justifiably mocked for saying that he looked into Putin's soul and thought that he was a good person. And Bush gave Putin the nickname, and every time I have to preface it with, I'm not kidding, of Pootie Poot. So, I mean, we have a poll up on who's dumber, Trump or Bush. Don't forget, Bush was pretty bad, okay? But this is a whole nother level, This was Bush back then. They don't even call him king. And now we got Trump going, some people think he's a king. But no, it turns out it's president. Among Republicans, he's still polling at an astronomical rate. They look at that and go, he's a dummy, just like me. That's my boy. Jesus Christ, God help us all. Okay, we're moving forward. Exciting news for CBS. They have named a new CBS Evening News anchor. Oh, wait, what happened? I thought you guys were gonna go nuts. Does anyone care? All right, well, that's the point of this story. First of all, does anyone know who the new anchor is? The anchor of CBS Evening News. This used to be legendary. Walter Cronkite had this position. Dan Rather had this position. This was the most important position in news, arguably, back in the day. Of course, no one knows. Okay, let's just keep it real. All right, that's fine. I'll give you a guess. There it is. Yeah, I'm gonna give you help. There he is. So now you got it, right? You still don't have it? You don't know who that guy is? You're right. No one on planet Earth knows who that guy is, including his mom. That is apparently Jeff Glor. Huh. You know him now? No, you still don't know. There's not a single person in the audience who raised their hands when I asked who that guy is. Do you know him or not? Okay, now, okay, I'm sorry that I'm amused by this story. Anyway, he's obviously replacing the old CBS Evening News anchor who was there for 6 years. Now, this guy you know, right? I mean, he's also on 60 Minutes and just all over CBS. Anybody want to try a stab at his name? Anybody? Anybody? Yeah, no, look, some of you do know him. Some of you do know him. This is Scott Pelley, okay? And I certainly know who Scott is, and some folks do, but probably not a lot. I know that because I go give speeches on colleges and to other young folks. Whenever I ask, can anyone name the CBS Evening News anchor, the ABC News, NBC News, no one has ever named the CBS or ABC News anchors. A couple people guessed Brian Williams for NBC, okay, which is not true, that's the old one. And yes, in a graduate level class at USC, a couple people knew Lester Holt. Anyway, but I forgot to tell you, there was a transitional anchor between Scott Pelley and Jeff Glor, but what am I thinking? I didn't have to tell you. You guys know who it was, right? You've been watching him the last 6 months. He's been at the CBS Evening News for 6 months. You don't know him either? Okay, here he is. It's actually Anthony Mason. Looks a little different since he retired from the Knicks. That's not right. Anyway, all right. Yeah, that's rest in peace. Not this Anthony Mason, the other Anthony Mason, okay? This guy's career is, no, I'm kidding. His career is fine. He's still gonna continue at CBS, okay? So, now look, the fact that you don't know him is both good, like, it's clearly not great news for CBS or any of the evening news stations or television overall, and certainly broadcast news. But it could be potentially a good thing, like maybe they picked the guy out of nowhere because he's really great. And who cares that we haven't heard of him? That's better than picking some stupid star like, oh my God, they star name recognition. We are bringing back, we're putting in here Ryan Seacrest. And Ryan's a hardworking dude, but okay. So look, maybe that it's a no name is a good thing, right? So we actually looked into it a little bit, looked at an Associated Press story that has some quotes from CBS executives, et cetera, to see why they selected him. And to be fair, I think he's won an Emmy, but I know guys who've won half a dozen. I know one guy, I think has won over a dozen Emmys in local news, so I don't think that's really was a decisive factor here. So let me give you quotes from the Associated Press. They said, ABC's World News Tonight has ascended to the top of the ratings after the telegenic David Muir replaced Diane Sawyer. Oh, so ABC's #1. So, and they have David Muir, who's a good-looking young guy. So, of course, what do television executives think? Oh, I got it. We got a young guy who is also telegenic. That's the answer. I'm sure that it'll turn things around right away. And then they explained, with the 42-year-old Glor taking over sometime before the end of the year, CBS will have a youthful anchor to match ABC's Muir, who is 43. Oh, okay, another good relevant factor here. Okay, telegenic and young, he's really close to David Muir. I got news for you guys. I know David Muir is at the top now, and he does 2 million more viewers than the CBS thing, and in their world, that's super important. No one under the age of 35 has ever heard of David Muir. Okay, so now that's okay, bless his heart, but it's just like, this is gone. These folks still think it's relevant. Like they're all like, oh wow, Glor got the job, huh? Is he gonna be able to compete with Muir? This is a real nail biter. Nobody's biting their nails, no one. Okay, by the way, there's a little bit, as I'm gonna show you the numbers here, there's a twist to that, which is really interesting. So we're gonna get there in 1 second. I just wanna quote CBS News President David Rhodes as well, have him explain. He says, it doesn't hurt the broadcast prospects that Jeff is of his generation. And I think Jeff naturally communicates a digital future for the broadcast. If you say so. Okay, here we are in digital world. Has anyone ever heard of Jeff Glor? Now, look, and by the way, I just want to be super clear. Jeff's probably a good guy. I don't know him at all, and I'm obviously being a little bit of a jerk here. Let's just keep it real, okay? Keep it 100. And by the way, he might also be a bad guy. I've never met him. I don't know, but likely he's a good guy. Cares about the news. Super happy to get this job. Bless his heart. And he did work on the digital side of CBS apparently. But my point in doing this kind of jerky segment is like the world is completely and utterly changed, and they're doing almost nothing to catch up. This is rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. Like, oh, let's get a young chair. Oh, that chair looks so shiny. Okay, I hear the kids are into that chair. I mean, he's in the digital age group. Yeah, but did he like? And I don't mean this, I don't care, I wouldn't want to take the CBS Evening News job if you paid me, and they would, and I would still say no a billion times over. It is a super uninteresting job of reading from a prompter that someone else wrote. Again, my bad, I'm being a jerk, but look, they read the news, they're readers, not an interesting job. But if you want it, so that's all a prelude to, if you really wanted someone from the digital generation, why don't you pick someone who grew up on the internet? I know it's laughable. They would never do that. Here, look, I'll pick someone who is also on the internet, and from time to time we compete for awards and stuff like that. Phil DeFranco. Now that would have been a bold choice. I would have been like, whoa, that is digital generation. They're not playing. They're going to go in a completely different direction. No, this is just riding out the rest of this, journey. You know where the journey ends, off a cliff. And they're just like, all right, let's just ride it and see how it goes, okay? So that's just the reality of it. I mean, look, again, Jeff's probably a good guy, but no one on the internet has ever heard of him. Okay, so last thing is, this is the twist. CBS Evening News, you know how many people watch them? I kid around and I say nobody. That's actually not true. 6 million viewers a night. Wow. You know how many people watch CNN? Primetime audience, not overall, primetime audience, 1.59 million. Actually, Jeff Glor will more than triple the Anderson Coopers of the world. And similar numbers for Fox News and MSNBC. So actually 3 times more people will watch him than Rachel Maddow, Sean Hannity, all those folks. So it's really interesting the way the media business works. Now the reality is that 6 million is enormously old. They're in their 60s, now bordering 70s, okay? No offense, I love you guys, but that's just the reality, okay? But you know what? Cable news audience is also ancient. CNN's average age on television is 61. MSNBC is 64, Fox News is 68. It's amazing what people pay attention to. Because the cable news guys are in every other news station. They're in the pizza shops, they're in some of the bars that you go to, God help us. They're in congressional offices. So everybody's talking about, oh my God, Anderson Cooper said this, Rachel said that, Sean said this. In reality, not that many people watch them either. So whether it's this show or other shows on the internet, we get way more than either one of those guys. But since it's not in the Washington and New York circles, and it's not on a loop 24/7, they, by the way, and again, to be super fair, the folks in power will turn around and go, for example, the example I use, Phil DeFranco, and I'm trying to give him credit here. I think that he's got a huge audience. He would do, like, if you actually wanted to appeal to young people, that would be an interesting way to go, right? So they would go, Phil DeFranco, nobody's ever heard of Phil DeFranco. Everybody knows Jeff Glor, nobody knows DeFranco. It kind of depends on who you're asking, right? So if you want an older audience, you go with the guys like Glor. You're not gonna get a 42-year-old audience. You're not. I write it down in stone. No one under the age of 45 is gonna watch CBS Evening News or ABC or NBC. They're never going to turn around. They're gonna stay in the same exact way until one day they wake up and it isn't 6 million, it's 6 people, right? But the different circles that news travels in is fascinating. And So the overall takeaway, funny enough, is not about Jeff Glor or CBS, even though I had fun with that part of the story. It's actually that we give cable news way too much attention. They don't deserve it. Their audience is actually smaller than the guys you've never ever heard of, and they're the same age. They're not any younger at all. So the relevance of cable news is greatly magnified simply because of where it airs. So keep it real on who has the audience, what those demographics are, and who the future is. And the future, unfortunately for them, ain't on TV. Okay. I kind of feel weirdly guilty about that story, that I made too much fun of them. Because I just don't know the guy at all, and he's gonna look at it and go, "This guy's such a dick."
That's what I'm saying. I was gonna say, mean guy talking trash. So you're in the TV business. How do you can't leave it? So what's your answer? Obviously, bringing in someone like, not saying you'd bring in. I can't remember his name now because I don't follow
DeFranco?
I don't follow these youngsters. Yeah, the DeFranco guys, but like nobody's gonna start watching nightly news because DeFranco's on.
No, you can't bring in DeFranco for nightly news because it's the 68-year-old audience there would be like, "Who is this whippersnapper? This is crazy." But you should, like, CBS has a whole internet arm that theoretically is doing okay, right? But they can't help themselves. That internet arm is also filled with the Jeff Glors of the world. That's where you should begin to build stars, but actual internet stars. But that rubs them the wrong way. They look at those internet stars and go, "No way, no way. They do not wear ties, they are not buttoned up, and they won't read from the fucking prompter." Right? So that's the real heart of the problem, lack of authenticity. Okay, anyways, let's move forward. All right, this is a sad story, okay? Now, Mark Halperin is a guy that I have honestly some disdain for, to say the least. Go back and watch some old clips. He is, to me, the epitome of conventional wisdom and the establishment media. Some conservatives might think, "Oh, it's a media figure on TV, he must be liberal." It dawned on me a couple of years ago, he's so frustrated. There's no person on television that reinforces right-wing Republican talking points more than Mark Halperin. And it dawned on me a couple of years ago that I was like, oh, maybe he's just a Republican. There's that possibility. So whatever he is, and I don't know and I don't really care, he will tell you that war is great and then we need tax cuts for the rich, and then any progressive idea has no chance of ever being accomplished. It's conventional wisdom 101, and it's almost not his fault. He's just the creation of Washington. And so that's the situation that Mark Halperin was in, and that's why I had no love for Mark Halperin. But today's news about Mark Halperin is sadder. It is about, unfortunately, sexual harassment charges. So let me tell you what those are so that you could see what's going on, and it has cost him a job already. So CNN broke this story, and hey, sometimes I get on CNN for not breaking stories, but they did break this one, so credit to them. Veteran journalist Mark Halperin sexually harassed women while he was in a powerful position at ABC News, according to 5 women who shared their previously undisclosed accounts with CNN and others who did not experience the alleged harassment personally, but were aware of it. So that corroboration is important, and I'm gonna have a quote on that for you in a little bit as well. So 5 women, that's a lot. So this story could have complications, and I will get to that as we keep telling you more about it, but at the end, it does not end well. The stories of harassment shared with CNN range in nature from propositioning employees for sex to kissing and grabbing one's breasts against her will. 3 of the women who spoke to CNN described Halperin as, without consent, pressing an erection against their bodies while he was clothed. That's terrible. Now, he denies that part of the charge, but admits that he did do something. I'll get to his quote in a second. But to be clear, Oliver Darcy for CNN reports Halperin denies grabbing a woman's breasts and pressing his genitals against the 3 women. In fact, here is Halperin's statement. He said, the women who worked with Halperin, who spoke with CNN, did not report to Halperin. Hold on, sorry. Oh, sorry, one more thing before I get to Halperin's statement. CNN also reports the women who worked with Halperin and who spoke with CNN did not report to Halperin. However, Halperin made many decisions about political coverage at ABC News and had a voice in some critical personnel decisions. None of the women have said, though, that he ever promised anything in exchange for sex or suggested that he would retaliate against anyone. So I read that and I thought, look, he's denying the non-consensual stuff. And asking people out, that's more of a gray area that I'll get to in a second. And he did not necessarily hold power over them. So that makes it different than Harvey Weinstein or Roger Ailes or Bill O'Reilly. So let's withhold judgment for a second. And I'm thinking this as I'm reading through the story. And then we get to Mark Halperin's statement. During this period, he said, I did pursue a relationship with women that I worked with, including some junior to me. I now understand from these accounts that my behavior was inappropriate and caused others pain. For that, I am deeply sorry and I apologize. Under the circumstances, I'm going to take a step back from my day-to-day work while I properly deal with this situation. Now, you guys might not know this, but because of the nature of me running the company, I've had all these seminars, right? And so they explain, and I was actually surprised by this. I got this about a year ago. You now cannot criticize employees for dating each other. So the rules have changed a little bit, and it depends on which state you are, et cetera. Don't take your counsel from me. But so there, as I'm reading the story, I said, okay, now let's really withhold judgment here. It depends on the context of his relationship with those folks. If he asked someone out and they said yes, that actually would be perfectly acceptable. And I'm trying really hard not to hold my bias against them on policy issues, et cetera, away from the story so that I don't prejudge it, right? So now, and by the way, if you ask someone out and they say no and you leave it at that, that's also okay. Now it's a little uncomfortable, so you have to be really careful at work, and I don't really suggest it. I definitely don't suggest it, but it does happen from time to time. And just whether the punishment of the person should not depend on whether the woman involved said yes or no to their simple request for a date. So if that's what this was, well, he could certainly recover from that, I think. But then I read more and realized it doesn't look like that's what this was. So from another piece of reporting here, away from the CNN story, after the CNN story broke, Clarissa Ward, another reporter that worked at ABC, tweeted, quote, this was an open secret when I was at ABC for years. Brave of these women to speak up. Uh-oh. So it looks like it wasn't just simply asking people out innocently. Then you read the details, going back to the CNN story, and the details are not good. So the first woman told CNN that she was invited to visit his office in the early 2000s when he was a political director at ABC News to have a soda, and said that while she was there with him, he forcibly kissed her and pressed his genitals against her body. No. That if true, that is completely and utterly unacceptable. I mean, there's three different parts of that are unacceptable. First of all, don't invite, if you are someone who has a higher position at the company, don't invite someone else who thinks, well, maybe he could help me down the road. Don't invite him for a soda, and you guys have not had any other interaction, there's been nothing else, and all of a sudden, you're trying to force yourself on her. That's terrible, terrible. And then kissing her without her permission. What are you, nuts? And at work, and she works under you in the chain at ABC, let alone once you get to the genitals against the body. Okay, here's the quote from the unnamed woman. I went up to have a soda and talk, and he just kissed me and grabbed my boobs. I just froze, I didn't know what to do. Who does that? Who does that? Apparently, unfortunately, a lot of people and a lot of men in power. I'm blown away by it. I can't imagine like, oh, hey, how you doing? And then boom, you grab their breast. That's insane, that's insane. But apparently it was done with great frequency, some version of that, as we're seeing with all of these stories. Okay, CNN continues. When she did make her way out of his office, the woman told a friend at ABC News what had happened. The friend told CNN she remembered the woman telling her about the incident and seeing her visibly shaken. So throughout the CNN article, I'm actually not giving you all the details because I don't want to beat it into the ground, and it just gets gross after a while. But there is several corroborating witnesses, so it's not just Halpern's word against one person or even against 5 people. There are also people at the time who said, yeah, I saw her come out of the office and she was shaking and she told me what happened at the time, not now. Okay, just last couple of quotes here so you get the full context. The unnamed woman also said the first meeting, and this is another person, the first meeting I ever had with him was in his office, and he just came up from behind. I was sitting in a chair from across his desk, and he came up behind me, and while he was clothed, he pressed his body on mine, his penis on my shoulder. I was obviously completely shocked. I can't even remember how I got out of there, but I got out of there and was freaked out by that whole experience. Given I was so young and new, I wasn't sure if that was the sort of thing that was expected of you if you wanted something from a male figure in news. That actually was the most devastating quote to me, not because of the weird penis to shoulder thing, which I've never heard of before, but because of how it made her feel. The abuse of power where, I'm not going to try to court this person. I'm not going to try to get their consent. I'm going to use my power. And the younger they are, the more they don't know the ropes. And then how many women, whether it's through Halpern or other people, thought, is this the rules of the game? I don't want to play this game. So in order to work and in order to advance, do I have to do something gross with a guy? Well, I'm not going to do that. And how many of them we don't know about that then stopped doing that job or didn't go up the ladder? This is devastating for women on a macro scale. And we had no idea of or at least I didn't and a lot of us didn't, the magnitude of the problem that we are now seeing being uncovered in front of our eyes. Now, MSNBC, where he was a regular on-air contributor, mainly on Morning Joe, said Mark Halpern is leaving his role as a contributor until the questions around his past conduct are fully understood. So that leaves us some opening that he could come back. Now, he's a guy that is beloved by the mainstream media and the establishment. He had a book about the campaign's Game Change that was turned into an HBO show. He had a show on Showtime. He was at ABC. Everybody read The Note, which is the morning edition of the news that he put out. And that's why he was so influential. He made and broke careers in a lot of ways, whether you got featured in The Note or you didn't. He went on to work in many different parts of the media. He got a $1 million contract reportedly from Bloomberg. So all these different news organizations, if Mark Halpern walked in, they were like, yes, Mr. Conventional Wisdom, we love it. Super respected, not necessarily by us and the internet and progressives and young people, but the establishment loved this guy. So my guess is they're going to give him every opportunity to rehabilitate himself, and he will go through all the different rigmarole that they do. And if anyone has a chance at a comeback, given how much those folks on TV like Halpern, probably Halpern has the best chance of a comeback. But the details are deeply disturbing, and I'm not sure that they merit that. Look, being a progressive, I never want to rule out second chances for people, but the recognition that those women thought their career might have been in jeopardy, and the non-consensual part of this, the fact that recognition has to be so thorough and so convincing, because how can you make sure that he goes back and works with other women and is not going to do the same things? And it's not a thing against Mark Halpern, and I withhold all judgment on whether he can rehabilitate himself like that. But we see with the Ailes and the Weinsteins and the O'Reillys, it is usually behavior that is repeated over and over and over again. But last piece of, just to be fair to Halpern, this was in the 1990s. It doesn't make it any better at all. It's just that there is no reported similar behavior in the last decade or so. There's some in the late 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, I think early 2000s, but not anything for the last 10 years. So unlike those other characters, he might not have repeated it. I am trying to be over the top fair to him, and I'm not quite sure why, but these details are really, really bad. But the most important part of all of this is, I think that we're all learning how much women have suffered in the workplace, unfortunately, quietly so in most of the instances. And I think the spotlight on this, putting aside people like Halpern and the rest, for women overall as a society, I think it is a great tipping point where we put a spotlight in it and begin to turn the corner and hopefully not have this happen at the scale that it was happening before. Hopefully we wipe it out completely, but that'll obviously take some time. But for all the guys out there who are thinking of abusing their power, or in some rare cases, women that might do likewise, well, you better be careful because you might be next in terms of the spotlight. So that's a great thing because we don't want them victimizing any more people. All right, we'll be right back.
some people might call him the king of China, but he's called president.
Antifa!
All right, back on the Young Turks. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. We got a lot of stories to get to. I'll read tweets later. Let's go over here. Let's give you one of our own stories. Let's start with con jobs. I forgot to tell you guys to roll the intro. Okay, so we are told over and over by the Trump administration, hey, we got to cut tax for the rich and for giant corporations because it's going to lead to jobs for you guys. So what we are doing at TYT Investigates is figuring out, is that true? Are they taking money from tax cuts and actually creating jobs with it? Well, we've found a lot of evidence about FedEx and UPS. So a new story from Steve Horn at TYT Investigates on this. First, let's give you context about how much money these guys make. So UPS reported $49.6 billion in gross profits for 2016, while FedEx reported $38.3 billion for fiscal year 2017. Both companies also paid out billions more to their investors in the form of dividends and stock buybacks. Now, I'm not telling you that because there's something wrong with them making money. Have at it, Hoss, make as much money as you want, and then if your stockholders do well, great, fantastic. That's not the issue. The issue is sometimes they'll say like, oh, golly gee, we're gonna create jobs, but we don't have enough money. That's why we need the tax cuts. If we had the tax cuts, then finally we could make some money and then create more jobs. And that's what they say on TV over and over again. And they send out lackeys to do likewise, which you're gonna see in a second. So in fact, UPS CEO David Abney told the audience at a September 20th event held by the Business Roundtable, a consortium of corporate CEOs, that revamping the US tax system is, quote, about growing the American economy, creating jobs, and giving us all a chance to be competitive. Now, poor guys, I mean, they only made $49.6 billion in gross profits. They can't be competitive without tax cuts. Okay, but that's fine, okay? What I care about is jobs. Now, if they actually created jobs, then hey, hunky-dory, everybody's, the middle class goes up, etc., right? And they make more money, God bless. Now, are they actually going to do that? Now, before I get to the both tragic and hilarious results of their so-called job creation, let me give you one more thing from FedEx. Now, this is gonna be Stephen Moore, he's a conservative, and he says that he was at an event with the CEO of FedEx, that's Fred Smith. And apparently Fred Smith also promised great jobs if we cut taxes. Let's watch.
We're up here at a 40% tax rate on our businesses, and the rest of the world's at 20% or less. So our businesses, when they compete in global markets, are starting with a 20 percentage point disadvantage. That's just un-American. Why don't we go from having one of the worst tax systems in the world to one of the best in terms of attracting businesses, jobs back in the United States? I had dinner, Allison, the other night with Fred Smith, the CEO of FedEx, a company that employs 100,000 Americans, and he just basically said, look, if you get that tax rate down, as Donald Trump is talking about, and you also do the repatriation. Remember, Allison, we want to allow companies to bring money, trillions of dollars that's overseas back invested in the United States. Yeah. He said, look, we're going to build new airplanes. We're going to have more vehicles. We're going to hire more workers.
We're going to hire more workers. That's what FedEx said. That's what they're going to do with the money because otherwise they don't have enough money to hire workers. And now, before we get to the great follow-up to that, Stephen Moore's not telling the truth. He said, we're at 40 and others are at 20. Actually, no, we're not at 40. The top rate for corporations are 35%, but most of them don't pay that. What Stephen Moore doesn't tell you is that the effective corporate tax rate, the tax they actually pay, is 22%. So we're not anywhere near 40. So that lie about, the poor corporations paying 40%, not remotely true. But Allison Camaretto is actually pretty great. And she, unlike a lot of other anchors, had an excellent follow-up question. Watch this.
Aren't they going to also automate things more?
Sure.
I mean, is he actually giving a number of how many workers he's going to hire? How many?
Yeah. Well, he said thousands, and that's one company. I mean, Apple CEO Tim Cook has said that they're going to bring 150 billion, not 150 million, 150 billion dollars back to the United States. Some of that will go to dividends to shareholders and pension funds. Some of that money will be used to expand.
Okay, thousands. That was awesome. All right, great follow-up question there. So now let's show you some of the reality of what we already know. So this is, they say, oh, well, if you give me these future tax cuts, I'll create jobs. Well, okay, well, you guys have had a lot of tax subsidies in the past from the federal government and also from different state governments. So what happened in those cases? Maybe that'll be a guidepost for us. So that's what Steve Horn looked at here. UPS has applied for and been approved for at least $9.025 million in tax benefits from the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, IEDC, since 2012, according to contracts reviewed by TYT. So now, Mike Pence used to, of course, be the governor of Indiana. Now he's lieutenant governor, he's the current governor. So how'd that turn out? Well, interesting twist here. However, more than $8.3 million of those benefits has yet to be dispersed, in part because some Indiana state tax assistance programs are contingent on provable job creation. The tax dollars already distributed to UPS by IEDC went not toward job creation, but toward improving, quote, efficiencies within the company. Okay, first of all, a lot of times efficiencies means I fired you and I'm now more efficient. Okay, but put that aside. So they're like, okay, here's $9 million, but you have to show that you create jobs. By the way, here, credit to Indiana, Pence and the new governor, because it did say in there you have to create jobs. And then UPS is like, oh, we were just kidding, we weren't really gonna create jobs. So they couldn't get most of the money. They had to, the $8.3 million had to sit there because they didn't actually create jobs. They're like, why don't we just take the money and create efficiencies? Isn't that good enough? In this case, not good enough, okay? Because they never use it for that. All right, TYT has learned, Horn continues, that the one time in recent years in which IEDC granted UPS a tax credit contingent on job creation, the company backed away from the deal, okay? So this is another deal. The tax credit was worth $875,000, and they just said, look, in return, you don't have to create thousands of jobs. It was very specific, 207 jobs at a minimum wage of, for Indiana in this case, $11.05. Okay, I don't know that those numbers add up, but it's not bad spending $875,000 if you got 207 jobs. It could be worse, not bad. Okay, so what did UPS do? They never built the hub in Jeffersonville. They were like, nah, really? We actually have to create the jobs? Once again, nope. We got no jobs, so we were just hoping to just get the money. And they didn't get the money. So good job in following up with that with the Indiana government so that they didn't get the money. Okay, now we go to Illinois and FedEx. Illinois Department of Transportation's Economic Development Program gave FedEx a $2 million subsidy toward its Cherry Valley hub in 2008. According to forms it has submitted with the Illinois Department of Transportation, FedEx has created 31 jobs there since receiving the money. Now that one was not contingent, but they went and followed up. And with $2 million, they created 31 jobs. Woo. Okay, now, the other thing they never tell you is, were those 31 jobs actually new jobs, or did they just bring them from another state? Because one of the things that FedEx and UPS, like a lot of other corporations do, is they threaten the local state government. And they go, well, look, I've got a center in Memphis, but I could move it to Mississippi. And they play these games to get subsidies and your hard-earned tax dollars. And sometimes they'll take the 31 jobs from Mississippi and move it to Memphis and go, Memphis, nice job on the money that you gave me, right, et cetera. Now look, this was about Illinois, but there is another, and read the whole story, and we'll have the story for you. The link down in the description box below. Great job by TYT Investigates, which by the way, you guys built. Thank you for doing that so we could find out stories like this. So this case was in Illinois, but there is one involving Memphis and Mississippi. You read the whole story. Last two things for you guys. We go back to UPS. In 2015, UPS got $1.7 million in tax rebate money from the Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority for its highly automated Centennial Hub in Louisville. According to the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development, the tax deal aims to create 12 new jobs. Okay, now you lost me. I mean, it's one thing to spend $875,000 and hope to get back a couple of hundred jobs, which didn't happen because they were not telling the truth or never delivered, right? It's another thing to spend $1.75 million and create 12 jobs that might or might not move from a different state. I think that a lot of you will agree with me. This is not the right way to do things. But if you did a poll in Kentucky and you said, all right, we can either give a company $2 million, nearly $2 million, 1.75, and then create 12 jobs, maybe, okay, or we're gonna pick 12 random people in Kentucky and just give them $1.75 million. I'm pretty sure I know which way that poll is gonna come out. Like, if it's that little jobs, just give them the money. You'd be way better off. The reason I tell you that is that's not the right way to do it. The reason I tell you that is because the point is for these governments to just give the money to the corporations who often donate to the politicians' campaigns anyway. They're just trying to find an excuse. They're like, no, it's okay. We created 12 jobs. Okay, finally, in 2012, the company landed, this is FedEx now, a $14.64 million Tennessee tax abatement, which went toward expanding a FedEx pilot training facility at the Memphis airport. That sounds like it might create jobs, but it didn't. It created 0 jobs in the process. 14 some odd million dollars right into their pocket, 0 jobs for you. So the next time you see these guys on TV telling you, oh yeah, we don't want the tax cuts for ourselves. No, we want it for you guys so we can create jobs for you. Know that in the past, that has not been their record. They take the money and they pay themselves through stock buybacks, which increases the amount of money that the executives make. Yes, the shareholders do well, but the executives do great with those stock buybacks. And oftentimes, as we have covered in other stories related to this in TYT Investigates, what they'll also do is create efficiencies where they either automate your job or outsource your job. Whatever you do, don't believe the hype just because someone on TV told you that they were doing it for your benefit. Oftentimes, if you look at the facts as we have, that is the opposite of what's the case. Okay, now I'm gonna go to a different story on O'Reilly. I'm running out of time. Okay, real quick. So now we've covered the Bill O'Reilly story plenty. So there's a new allegation of another woman that he harassed. That's not the point of this story, okay? Now, it's investment manager Michael Panter joined the hashtag #MeToo movement by telling a story about an ex-girlfriend who used to work at Fox News, and O'Reilly sexually harassed her as well, according to his claims about what she said. So that's not the heart of this story, though. The heart of the story is O'Reilly and Fox News management then later turned around and asked that same woman to try to dig up dirt on another victim, someone else that O'Reilly had sexually harassed, but who they wanted to smear. So this story is not about O'Reilly, it's about Fox management, because Panter says that the ex-girlfriend, who apparently signed a non-disclosure agreement, received calls from then Fox News co-president Bill Shine, Fox Human Relations, and O'Reilly. So Fox management, Bill Shine is the new co-president. Don't worry, Roger Ailes is gone. We are cleaning up our house here. Well, Shine was one of his top lieutenants. He's implicated in so many of these stories, including this one. They call and they go, all right, let's go find a way to make sure we can smear the people that O'Reilly sexually harassed. So let me give you the details of what he wrote. And by the way, he's also a former New Jersey representative and a Democrat, just giving you all the details here, okay? O'Reilly explained that a new accuser was suing him for sexual harassment. This latest victim was someone my ex knew and lived in the same complex. He got to the point immediately. Give me anything you have on this woman which we can use against her. He asked if anything was known about her sex life. He asked if she used any illegal drugs. He also asked if anything was known about her financial situation and marriage. In essence, the leadership of Fox, including their HR head counsel and O'Reilly, who held my ex's career in their hands and whom O'Reilly was also harassing, was demanding information to attack another victim. That goes to show you how vicious they were. it wasn't just, hey, my word against her. So is there anything related to that sexual harassment case or even sex in general that we could use to show that she wasn't telling the truth? That would be the best case scenario explanation for what Fox News executives did. No, they're like, just tell her anything about her sex life and her finances, and let's see if we can ruin her marriage. If we can dig up dirt about her marriage, maybe we could use that as leverage. So what was the result? Panter said his ex-girlfriend told O'Reilly of an innocuous encounter with the other woman, which prompted the Fox host to get, quote, dismissive and say, quote, none of that is helpful. I'm trying to restrain myself from telling you what O'Reilly actually did with the woman he was then asking for help and smearing someone else. But it was his usual pattern. Let's leave it at that. So these guys have no bounds. Now O'Reilly's gone and his career is pretty much over. Now 2 different talent agencies have dropped him. But Bill Shine still exists. The guy who helped engineer the cover up of Ailes' sexual harassment cases and O'Reilly's sexual harassment cases, and encouraged, apparently, according to these reports, the smear of the victims, is still in charge at Fox News. It doesn't look like they've changed a thing. Okay, now I got to take a quick break. When we come back, speaking of not changing a thing, the DNC, the Democratic Party, they've decided they're going to strike out against progressives. Of course! But the way that they're going to do that is deeply frustrating. I'll tell you about, unfortunately, yet another dirty trick.
I'm gonna tell you a story and then I want you to tell me what you think about the way I reacted to the situation and if you thought it was acceptable.
Guilty. Oh wait, I gotta wait for the story.
I know Anna Kasparian has some stuff to say, and the world needs to hear it.
But then he became woke bae. I hate
it. I love it. I love it.
Jesus and I used to do this trick where we would elongate the videos so that we would look skinnier.
That is the most positive drug dealing story I've ever heard of.
Bears don't give a fuck.
I trust you guys, audience. Don't let me down.
You don't believe in ghosts?
Talking about pussy. Don't.
The food in Turkey is phenomenal.
Hey, we got spotted TYT. What is this puzzle spell?
Oh, death.
Did you want to poop outside? No, I poop here. It's fine because I bury it. And you know what happens in that water? Turns the frogs gay.
And they can't stand the establishment. And then I slipped and fell on my ass.
Guess I gotta get comfortable here.
That is tomorrow's joke. Jake, when your time is up, what wouldn't you do for just one more day?
I'm gonna try to have sex with you. If you don't want it right now, just roll up a newspaper and hit me.
Hottest club I've ever been to is my bedroom. People often say that you are the Jasmine of TYT.
Yep.
Please, I am not with you, baby. You gotta let me go.
Oh God, this hurts so bad.
You're alive, you're alive. The last day is not any more valuable than today is. Look, we're doing interviews over there at youtube.com/TYT interviews. And we've done some amazing ones recently. So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Why not back him during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all?
And we're in the time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history in 2017.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited right now.
Did anybody call for an editor?
Need this in an hour.
But you're an editor too.
Love you.
Russia! All right, back on the Young Turks. First of all, important correction from a story I just did, the last story on O'Reilly and Fox News. So I was frustrated that Bill Shine was continued to be co-president of Fox News after Ailes left, but he actually did leave in May, so he's not there anymore. That is a very important correction. I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that. All right, now let me go to some tweets here. Joseph S. CNN host actually asked a decent follow-up question for once. Actually, you'd be surprised. Alison Camerado is really pretty good. You should check her out on CNN. She does think things through and ask pretty great follow-up questions. She used to be on Fox News. She used to be on Fox News. She left Fox News a while back, then went to CNN. So I know you're thinking like, no, but give her a chance. She's actually pretty good, as I've now said 18 times. Okay, Control Left says, so corporations are using the I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today line now. Pretty much. And Rita Ann says, when are American people going to wake up? Job creators is code for bigger tax breaks for the outsourcers. Well, that is, as we have shown you several times, literally true. And thank you guys for creating that TYT Investigates team. I think they're doing a wonderful job of getting you real news. Okay, now let's go over here. So, we've got a lot of really interesting races that are coming up in 2018. Lots of Democrats running, some in Democratic districts with Democratic incumbents, some in Republican districts where there's a lot of different Democrats vying to knock off the Republican in that district. So the Democratic Party should be treating all those candidates equally. Now you want to take a guess as to whether they're doing that? Not if you're up against an incumbent. Then, well, you know, this progressive candidate, do we really have to be fair to them? I mean, this is our beloved people in power. No, it doesn't matter that they're already in power. The question is, who do the voters want? Not who do the people in power want. So it should be entirely irrelevant that they are incumbents. So how are they going to punish these progressives that are running against Democratic incumbents? Well, there's something very important called VAN, the Voter Access Network. Let me explain what that is. And the Just Democrats put out a press release about this, and I'm going to quote it. Voter Access Network is a tool used by Democratic candidates to target voter outreach efforts. Generally, campaigns are given access to voter data that has been gathered by previous campaigns at both a national and local level. So that's the way that it is supposed to work. So you've got two Democratic candidates, or 3 or 4 or 5, they're supposed to have the same access to this incredibly important tool for reaching out to voters. Well, that is not how it's working for 3 of the Just Democratic candidates who are challenging incumbents. So JD candidate Anthony Clark is going up against Danny Davis, and he has been blocked. I'm going to give you the details of how they were blocked in a second. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with a really powerful challenge of Joe Crowley in New York. Joe Crowley is one of the leadership guys in the Democratic Party, so they really, really want to protect him. And Sarah Smith is going up against Adam Smith in Washington, a Democratic representative that is weirdly conservative in the state of Washington. I don't know why you guys put up with that. So let me go one by one through these different issues. So Anthony Clark is running against the incumbent Danny Davis. In his case, well, that one was really simple. They just blocked access to him. They said, we're not going to give you that information at all. So Anthony Clark now stands a far less chance of winning, thanks to the shenanigans of the DNC as usual. Now, for the others, they had to do some level of nuance. So for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they said, oh, sure, we'll give you the voter data. But they removed key voter data from past campaigns and gave her a watered down version. It's not like these guys are going to be caught unawares. Like, would they think that we're new to this thing? The Just Democrats are stacked with people who worked on Bernie Sanders' campaign. They took Bernie Sanders from almost nothing in the polls, 2-3%, up to 46%. I think they know what they're doing. So when they get the voter data and it's old voter data that is not nearly as useful, that is not a trick that is going to slide past them. And the way that they treat progressives as if we're children and don't know how politics works is maddening. By the way, if you want to fight back, justicedemocrats.com/win to finance these guys and to help them and support them, because they do not take corporate money and they do not take PAC money. So that is part of what drives the Democratic establishment crazy about these candidates. They're actual progressives that are uncorrupted. So that leads us to Sarah Smith, which unfortunately is the funniest story. I mean, it's not funny at all because she's an actual progressive who fights super hard to get your priorities. But it's funny in how they denied her. They said, well, sure, you could get access to that important information, but first you need to get approval. You need 2 county party approvals. You need approval from 10 legislative district parties. This is all the establishment, right? There's some great folks in there, but some folks who are not gonna wanna see the incumbent lose. And then my favorite part, you need to be endorsed by half of the Democratic Party before you can get access. So 51% of the Democratic Party has to, in the state of Washington, has to agree to give her the voter data. That's like winning the election. Like, okay, no problem. You can get access to the voter data to help you win the election right after you win the election. Okay, now it's not the same exact thing because it's Democratic Party officials, but it is a preposterous standard. Well, the establishment will give you access to their data as soon as the establishment agrees with you. How's that for circular reasoning? So, number one, this is outrageous and we have to do something about it. And I'm gonna tell you what you can do about it in a second. But I wanna just give you one more quote. It's from Corbin Trent. He's the communication director for Just Democrats. He said, it's baffling to me. Sanders' presidential race added much needed energy to the party. This slate of 29 inspirational Just Democrats could have had a similar impact or could have a similar impact, but we are being thwarted at every turn. We fully expected that we'd see resistance from multinational corporations and the billionaire class, but it's a shame that we also have to fight our own damn party. Well, as usual, Just Democrats are fighting back. So they've started a petition, justdemocrats.com/DNC. Very simple concept, end the Democratic Party voter file lockout. By the way, this also happened to Tim Canova when he was running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. The DNC supported Debbie Wasserman Schultz unfairly against another Democrat in her race. Wow, couldn't have seen that coming. But look, guys, I know that it's predictable. Unfortunately, it is really important and does prevent these candidates from being able to reach you guys, the actual voters. So if we put enough pressure on, we've got to get the DNC, if they're actual Democrats, to treat Democrats equally and fairly. The Republicans are the ones that are supposed to be doing voter suppression, not the Democrats. So it is absolutely outrageous. Go sign the petition right now, justdemocrats.com/DNC. End the Democratic Party voter file lockout and demand that the Democratic Party stop blocking Just Democrats from using the voter contact tools that everyone should have access to. So, and if you care to support these candidates, then go to justdemocrats.com/win. But even if you don't support these candidates, you should support the idea of equal access. That is supposed to be the core of the Democratic Party. Okay. Okay, all right, one last story. Okay, just to end on a fun note, okay? So Donald Trump's been all over Fox News, a couple other outlets too, including the 700 Club. They're all very, very friendly to him. He almost never goes on a station that isn't friendly to him since he has become president. And boy, Media Matters in this case did a great job, put together a compilation of why Donald Trump goes on those outlets. It might be a little friendly, to say the least. Watch this.
Mr. President, I'm so glad to see you. I'm so proud of everything you're doing.
So, how was your week?
You guys want to start with good news? Yeah. Let's some good news.
You have accomplished so much in that 9 months.
Tell me, how good is your press secretary?
Who's been your biggest opponent? Has it been Democrats resisting? Has it been fake news media? Has it been deep state leaks?
Deep state that has been leaking on you.
So much fake news, and we have to
agree with that, fake news?
You probably agree with me.
I do.
But if
Your agenda is not getting out because people are caught up on the Comey issue and ridiculous stuff.
I agree.
I've never seen any one person face as much in terms of attacks as you have.
There are thousands and thousands of people praying for you all the time and holding you up.
Overwhelmingly, there's a lot of support for you here. Congress.
The country owes you a great debt on so much, but on that in particular.
It's very interesting. It's well put. It's true.
I opened up the failing New York Times and the Washington Post this morning.
Dennis Rodman.
Are you moving so quickly that your communications department cannot keep up with
Yes.
you?
You're also one of the most loved and respected
I would say that also.
in history.
There was so much effusive praise for your visit to Puerto Rico by the governor, by most of those mayors, who said we've never seen this level of response from the federal government.
You are fighting like hell every day.
When I walked in, the cheering was incredible.
You were a rock star. I saw
it was
the
crazy.
video of it.
It was crazy.
You're better than President Bush. I mean, the federal pages are down 30% under your leadership.
And
A Republican senator is doing enough to have your back.
Just know that we will forever vote for you.
I have a friend who's a trucker, and he's very proud of his equipment. You have been so great, and I'm very proud of you. The show, which I watch absolutely almost all the time, even if it means TiVo or whatever device you happen to be using at the time.
We appreciate it.
But no, your show is fantastic. Thank you for
very
your
much.
support over the years. You've been so fantastic.
You are most welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So
Thank you.
proud of what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
God
Appreciate
bless
it.
you.
Appreciate it.
Let's keep this country safe. And I think that's our prayer for you and the country.
All I know is Fox is good. You are fair. And I have to say, Fox has treated me fairly. And I don't mean good, but they've treated me fairly. I don't want to be treated good. I just want to be treated fairly. All I want is fair. I don't want anything else. I just want fair. And Fox has really been fair, and I appreciate it.
You are, if I may say, everything is advertised as you ran for president, and appreciate everything you're doing.
Credit to Media Matters there for putting together a nice compilation. Just quickly, my favorite parts. If I may say, you are wonderful, dear sir. Yeah, you probably can say it. And Lou, that might be why you got the interview in the first place. But actually, my better than that was, I watch you almost all of the time. You know what that means? He never watches them. He's not on Fox, Lou Dobbs. He's on Fox Business. Trump doesn't watch that. He's like, I watch you on the TiVo or something. No, you don't. It's a classic Trump lie. But you know, you kiss my ass, so I'm on here, Lou. Nice job. We owe you a great debt, sir. Then the great line of the deep state has been leaking all over you. Well, that part I enjoyed. Some truth to that one. And finally, your communication department cannot keep up with you, right? You're just too good and too fast. Oh, that's what happened. Yeah, I mean no, he's an idiot and he tweets in the middle of the night. That's the reason they can't keep up with him is they're like, no, don't tweet that. Oh, for Christ's sake. You are loved and respected, aren't you? Well, I would agree. So the rest of the interviews weren't any better. If they agree with Trump and they want to say nice things about him, I get it. But you should also ask him tough questions. There wasn't a tough question to be found in any of those interviews. Anyway, I don't think you're surprised that those guys, turns out that they wanted to give Trump a fair hearing, and Trump likes people who don't criticize him. Didn't see that coming. All right, we're way out of time. We got to go. When we come back, more amazing news for you guys, including, oh no, George H.W. Bush, what have you done? So apparently the ex-president is grabbing women's asses and then doing one of the world's worst jokes. Well, I have to be fair and honest, a Uyghur level pun, but you shouldn't be doing that while sexually assaulting women. All right, we'll explain when we come back.
TYT is unique in a lot of ways.
I'm gonna ask some uncomfortable questions.
I feel like I missed out.
So what is going on? If I don't eat, my head's gonna explode.
As I take my shirt off, just goes, is that your body?
Now we move to inappropriate story number 2.
I just never felt guilty about masturbation.
It's amazing.
I could take partial credit for opening up your sexuality.
I was the kid in the pool with the shirt off. Let's just call it what it is. I was that kid.
Well, you deal with the bitch side of me, right? But you're my boss, so that's what happens.
I think we're more likely to win. They do see it from a frame of the rich and the powerful, and they don't realize that.
The last time that happened, we elected Abraham Lincoln.
I don't know, wouldn't it be wonderful if we unfucked the world?
You and I are a disaster.
Don't stereotype all cops, don't stereotype all anything. Blowing up like Dave Kohler on Twitter, that's pretty good progress.
I didn't know you could leave positive comments.
It's a very TYT thing. I'll tell you a whole bunch of depressing stuff so that at the end I can give you hope. Winning is, in terms of change and positive change, is not just possible, it's inevitable.
Great time to be alive.
Let's burn this mother down, huh? Is that what you're saying? Fuck it, let's go do it. And that's why I keep thanking you guys for being members. Because together, we got their attention.
Thanks for tuning in, and as always,
Stay strong.
Hey, what's up?
Aaron, what do you like better? The rabies or rabies? Go.
Welcome back to a whole new season of Murder with Friends, the show where two friends get together and talk about the darker sides of history. You guys know that I go all the way on conspiracy theories, so work with me, people. How did the police let that happen?
Because they were corrupt at the time. It was like awful. Not that they still aren't.
Statistically, we've all met someone who's murdered someone.
It's
creepy.
You can't talk about a murderer without going back to his origins. It's Murder with Friends. Don't be scared. You're among friends.
Hey guys, welcome to TYT Sports. Ben Mankiewicz here, and we have a new guest to introduce. Delighted to do this. Francis Maxwell is our World Cup expert. We're going to start here with Group A, which is Brazil, Croatia, Mexico.
Brazil or Croatia are going to win this group. Unless weather hit Croatia, then maybe Cameroon. Mexico has no chance.
You know who has no chance? The US. Literally no chance.
Well, not sure if you're trying to piss me off or something, but not cool.
What I told you about Mexico was a fact. What you were talking about US was simply an opinion. USA has no chance, that's a fact.
Of course they don't. I might have been mistaken because in football, there's always a chance, even when there's no chance.
Like I said, what you gave was an opinion, what I gave you was a fact.
Calm the assholeness down. Like I said, in football, there are no facts about results. No one counted on Real when they blasted Bayern 5-0. And no one counted when Brazil lost to Mexico in the Olympics. I was trying to be polite, but unfortunately, your bitchness got the better of you.
Just like I said, the US has no chance.
Personally, I'm rooting for Germany. I just think maybe Brazil and Spain will fight.
Screw your BS. We all know it's Crimea for the win.
Faster than whoever.
Well,
and you can see it within the first 2 minutes. You're like, these guys are just, they're faster.
Absolutely, I agree. And they've always had that speed about them. It's always been about speed, but it's also been about...
All right, back on the Young Turks, Jen and Anna with you guys. And I got great news for you. You know I'm sick. I think I'm gonna get sicker.
That's great. Can you not talk in my direction, please?
It's going to be kind of difficult today. All right, anyways, let me read you some tweets. Gabby writes in, if the DNC is so insistent on purging progressives from the Democratic Party, they better prepare for a rude awakening in 2018 and 2020. Here, Gabby. JustDemocrats.com/win, okay? Miri says, I used to believe we could reform the party, now I don't. Bernie needs to run independent, we'll follow him. Miri, you gotta trust me that that's not the right way to do it. There is enormous infrastructure problems if you run third party. That's okay, we got a great pirate ship named Justice Dems. Let's board their aircraft carrier and take it over, okay? JustDemocrats.com/win. And then finally, 2 tweets about the compilation of Fox News kissing Trump's ass. Kara Curley says, wow, they must go through gallons of lip gloss kissing that ass. And Zeno Frinia says, Deep State has been leaking on you. That's rich. Agreed. I thought they liked trickle-down economics. That's a trickle-down on Trump in terms of leaks. All right, Casper, what's next?
All right. What's next? A bunch of the same old shit. That's what's next.
I know, right?
Yeah. All right. 2 actresses have accused former President George H.W. Bush of groping them and following that type of sexual assault with an incredibly corny joke that they did not find funny, but rather offensive. Now, this story first broke yesterday when an actress by the name of Heather Lind shared her story on an Instagram post, which has since been deleted. She had written in the post that he, meaning George H.W. Bush, touched me from behind, from his wheelchair with his wife Barbara Bush by his side. He told me a dirty joke and then, all the while being photographed, touched me again. She also continued, so this story made headlines yesterday, and part of the reason why I didn't cover it was because there was a lot that was unclear to me at the time, right? So for instance, he has been wheelchair bound for the last 5 years. And sometimes you accidentally, touch someone in a way that you didn't mean to touch them. I didn't know if that's what happened. I didn't know if it was intentional. As soon as the story broke, a spokesperson for Bush released a statement apologizing for the joke. And then I'm like, oh, that seems like a bit of an admission, but still things are a little unclear. But now, recent reporting indicates that no, things are pretty clear. A second actress has come out and provided some evidence of him doing something incredibly similar. So first, let's take a look at Heather Lind's photo. This is what she posted on Instagram. And this doesn't show any evidence, but it shows the picture in question. He allegedly grabbed her behind while this photo was being taken, okay? And Deadspin reported on this and said, more than a year ago, a tipster passed word about the Heather Lind incident to Deadspin. We were told that Bush had, during a photo op, groped her and told her that his favorite magician was David Copperfield while fondling her. Really? This is that, you think that's acceptable? Like that is, wow.
No, of course it's not acceptable. So look, you can't do it, and that's why these stories are important. Now, the only reason why it's all a matter of degree, right? And first of all, none of the degrees are acceptable. It's never acceptable to grab a woman's ass without asking her. That's obvious, right? Most obvious thing in the world. But to some in the older generation, unfortunately, it's not obvious. So you know that because he's making a joke about it. He in front of everybody. He's like, haha, David Copperfield, because I am grabbing your ass, even though I'm a former president. Uh-oh, it has begun.
Oh no. Yeah, cough in that direction. Okay, so he's from a different time. Doesn't matter. He makes the joke, and it's out in the open. And allegedly, Barbara Bush just kind of rolled her eyes at it, and just kind of made light of it. And so, following Heather Lind's account of what occurred, there's another actress by the name of Jordana Grolnick who says that she experienced something very similar. In fact, she wrote, I got sent the Heather Lind story by many people this morning, and I'm afraid that mine is entirely similar. in August of 2016, Grolnick was working at a main production of Hunchback of Notre Dame. The former president caught a performance. He came backstage during an intermission, she says, and she had the rest of the cast gathered for a photo. So here's the setup. Here's how it all starts. Then she says, we all circled around him and Barbara for a photo, and I was right next to him. He reached his right hand around my behind, and as we smiled for the photo, he asked the group, do you want to know who my favorite magician is? As I felt his hand dig into my flesh, he said, David Copperfield. And then she also provided a photo, where you can see his hand touching her behind.
Okay, so the reason why this is not Weinstein level or O'Reilly or Ailes level is one, he doesn't hold power over them, although he's a former president, I grant you that. It's also about intent. Like those guys, almost same exact pattern. They would isolate the women in a room, they'd be in the room with them. They would ask for sex and then they would touch them in all sorts of different ways. There's all these different things that they did. This is a guy who clearly does not know that what he's doing is wrong. That's why he's making a joke in front of everyone, including his wife, about David Copperfield. Now, it doesn't mitigate that he's doing it. And the reason I like these stories coming out is so that even 93-year-olds understand you can't just grab people's ass anymore. And apparently, maybe back in the day, they thought that that was perfectly acceptable. It is not acceptable, okay?
Yeah.
But in his own mind, and you could disagree with me and say, I don't care what his mind is, but he did not have malicious intent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have broadcast it to everybody, right? And so, and look, some of the older folks, and look, you could argue Ailes and Weinstein and O'Reilly are also old, but 93 is a different level of old. He served in World War II, etc. It's not, again, not an excuse. I'm just saying some of the older folks sometimes will use words that are outdated, like colored people. They don't mean, I don't like black people. They don't know that people don't use that word anymore.
So,
do you see what I'm saying? So I love that the story's coming out because it leads to more education so people stop doing it. But it just doesn't feel as evil as the other guys.
So, look, I get what you're saying. He grew up in a different time where it was totally okay to grope people, women namely, and feel this entitlement in regard to putting your hands on someone else without consent. But he's living, like he knows. I don't care what his intent was. His intent was to grab a woman's ass without asking permission ahead of time, right? It has been around, he knows how much society has changed. So I'll give you an example. When I was in middle school and high school, the F word, and I'm not referring to fuck, was thrown around left and right, and no one even cared. It wasn't offensive, it wasn't considered derogatory in any way. And guess what? Society has changed, it's progressed, and that word is unacceptable. And I never use that word. I know that using that word is wrong. I would never use that word and then use the excuse of, well, when I was growing up, that word was totally acceptable. No, society changes. And he's a president, former president, okay? He knows better. He is not entitled to grabbing anyone's ass. I don't care if he was born 93 years ago or if he was born 100 years ago or 500 years ago. Doesn't matter. If he's alive today, he knows that society's changed.
But that's my point, which is that he might not know. So, when people say colored people, they don't know. They're not trying to rub your face in it. I think I heard not the other day, but a while back, someone even actually still used Chinaman. And now some folks that use that, they know what they're doing and they're total jerks, right? And some folks are just like stuck in 1950. And remember, this is the George H.W. Bush who got in a lot of political trouble because he didn't know what a scanner at a grocery store was. He's like, whoa, what is that? How does it tell you the price? He didn't know the price of milk. I mean, he was known for being clueless. I mean, he's a smart guy, way smarter than his son.
It's a low standard. But
yeah, I hear you. Very low bar, right? Okay, so for the 18th time in the story, I'm not excusing his behavior. What I like that the story is coming out not as a ha-ha to the George H.W. Bush, but as a way of educating folks. If you lived in the old school and you thought that was acceptable, it is not acceptable. That is sexual assault. And people are justifiably very mad about that. Now, whether you think it matters what his intent is or not, that's a fine, I hope that's a fine disagreement.
Just one other point that I want to make, okay? You're taking this photo with these actresses while your wife is there. Like, even if we lived in this crazy society, which, pretty recently we did live in this society where it was okay to just grope women like that, right?
Yeah.
What happened to family values? You're there with your wife and you are grabbing another woman's ass right in front of her. Unacceptable. Unacceptable on every level. So no, I can't get over it. I can't get over like the excuses. I can't get over the apology / non-apology they released. Let's just quickly read that for you. This is from a spokesperson for Bush, graphic 8A. At age 93, President Bush has been confined to a wheelchair for roughly 5 years, so his arm falls on the lower waist of people with whom he takes pictures.
Okay, let's pause there. It's for me to agree with Anna that that's a terrible excuse.
Yeah, but it gets worse. To try to put people at ease, the president routinely tells the same joke. And on occasion, he has patted women's rears in what he intended to be a good-natured manner. What? No, that is not a good-natured thing, okay? You don't touch a person's ass thinking that it's completely okay and you're entitled to it. Some have seen it as innocent, others clearly view it as inappropriate. To anyone he has offended, President Bush apologizes most sincerely. Wow.
You're right, that's a terrible, now that I've reread, that's a terrible apology. I good-naturedly sexually assaulted you, and if you were offended, well, I mean, Jesus, okay, I guess we apologize.
Some people understand that it was good-natured. Those are the good people. But if you were offended, we sincerely apologize.
All right, but Anna, super last thing. Let me ask you, do you feel any differently if George H.W. Bush does it in this manner or Trump does it? And the reason I ask that, or by the way, it could be Trump or Clinton, right? To me, it feels like Trump and Clinton know exactly what they're doing, and it feels way worse. But I could be wrong. That's why I'm asking you, as opposed to H.W. Bush.
Here's the thing. Regardless of who it is, if someone puts their hands on me in any way that I don't want or like or didn't consent to, I'm gonna have the same reaction, emotion, and feeling toward it, right? And so I get where you're coming from, right? Trump has a certain level of sleaziness to him that might make me feel a little worse about it. But no, I think at the end of the day, when you're violated in that way, you're violated. Remember, I shared the story of the guy who grabbed my ass at a YouTube event. And I liked that guy, I was a fan of his. And it was such a degrading feeling, and I just kind of brushed it off and put it in the back of my mind because I didn't want to think about it again. And so it doesn't matter, if you agree with the person's ideology or if you like the person or hate the person, it just you feel violated.
I hear you. So you're the better authority on this. I have also had my ass grabbed, but not in the same way, obviously. And mine was in the middle of an assault. But anyway, we'll tell that story in the post.
Wait, what?
I'll tell the story in the post game. TYTnetwork.com/join.
Jeez, okay.
Okay, interesting. But I will defer to your judgment, and I hear you that Bush certainly, and by the way, I agreed with this from the beginning, that he doesn't get a pass.
Yeah.
Right. It just feels a little different for me than someone who's maliciously doing it, but you're the better judge.
All right. Let's move on to another sexual assault story. More and more men in Hollywood are coming out and sharing their stories of getting sexually assaulted or sexually harassed in the industry, which is good. Not good that they got sexually assaulted, but it's important for men to come out and speak about their experiences as well, because this is not an issue that only impacts women. Now, Kevin Sorbo, who politically speaking I have no love for, recently shared how he was sexually harassed by Gianni Versace, who is no longer alive. He died. However, apparently Versace had not only sexually harassed him, but put his hands on Sorbo, and he shared the story during a podcast with Adam Carolla. So here's what he had to say. All of a sudden, his hand goes up my leg And he says, dude, do you know I'm straight? And Versace allegedly responds to him by saying, this is why I like you. You're not a girly man, you are a man's man. In life, you must F everything. You must do the dog and the cat and the boy and the girl.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, you don't have to do any of that.
Yeah, I had a very unfortunate analogy that I'm going to now needlessly share with you and get myself in trouble. People will say like, forever, like, you just gotta try, you gotta try everything once.
Yeah.
I always thought, no you don't. I've never had sex with a rhino. I don't have to try that once to know that I'm not going to enjoy it.
Right.
Right, so no, you don't have to do the dog or the cat. And if you're Kevin Sorbo straight, he's straight, he doesn't have to do you. And of course, the much more important thing is, again, the power dynamic. Versace had a very important modeling job that Sorbo could have gotten. This was earlier in his career, obviously, when he was a model, before he even went on to acting. And I don't agree with Sorbo politically at all, okay? And he said some things that really got under my skin, but that affects this story 0%. He's absolutely right. And I generally definitely believe his allegations.
Yeah.
I lived in Miami when Versace did. No, I'm sorry, he got shot right before I moved to Miami, okay? And the stories were, he had a house, a gorgeous house right on Ocean Avenue, and it had like this giant telescope, and it was not for looking at the stars, but for looking at young men at the beach, and then he would pull them into his house, like somebody would come out and go, Gianni Versace would like to see you, right?
Wow.
Now, you didn't hear the rest of the story, but it's not surprising to hear that this is what would happen sometimes.
Jeez, okay. Well, again, I'm glad Sorbo shared, his take, because I think men are even less willing to come out and talk about their experiences because, there's even more stigma toward men who talk about it, right? They're supposed to be strong, they're supposed to have no emotion, but no, they get victimized too, and they should feel comfortable speaking out so people are brought to justice. In this case, Versace won't be brought to justice, but it will at least open the door for other men who have had similar experiences in the industry. Now, he didn't end up getting that modeling deal because he didn't cave into, these advances. So he talks about that a little bit as well. He said that Versace had booked me for his fashion shows, but I never got his campaign. But I knew the game, just like I know the game of Hollywood. Casting couches have always been around. I don't play that game, nor do I care to.
As I've said before, I think this is actually tip of the iceberg. I don't know if we're ever gonna find out about the whole iceberg, but in terms of men who abuse their power who happen to be gay in Hollywood, because we found out about the men who are straight who have abused their power, but men are men, and so it is unlikely that men who are attracted to other guys are somehow different than men overall. And I have heard a lot of total rumors and nothing substantiated. If I knew, I'd tell you. But there's a constant chatter about gay, powerful folks in Hollywood who've done this, and this is one. Now, he's not exactly Hollywood Versace's fashion,
right,
et cetera. And I don't, by the way, it is definitely not me saying that that gay Hollywood is any different than straight Hollywood. My point is the exact opposite, which is men are men, they're all the same. And so if more stories like this came out, I wouldn't be surprised. And in this case, he said no. Anyway.
But okay, so I have a very quick question to ask you. You say men are men, and I feel like that, and I know you don't mean to say this, which is why I want you to clarify. That makes it seem like as soon as a guy is in a position of power, he's gonna abuse his power, which I don't think is true at all, right? I've come across a lot of powerful men who have never ever made me feel harassed or assaulted or anything like that. It's just, I think the part of this that shocks even me is how incredibly commonplace it is in certain industries, not even in certain industries, probably in every industry, right? Like, I think I underestimated how often this kind of stuff happens, but I don't think that most men are like this or all men are like this, not even close. I just think that we've underestimated just how many powerful people there are out there that take advantage of those that don't have as much power.
Yeah, well, so that, let me be clear. So do I think all men are doing it right now? Of course not, right? Do I think a way higher percentage of men in positions of power did it earlier, 1960s, 70s, et cetera. Yes, I think we were naive in not realizing to what degree that happened before. And it is partly a dynamic of men because men are interested in sex more than women. I know that's a totally gross generalization. I mean in this sense, right? And take all the generalizations for whatever you want, but it's not that women don't want to have sex, it's that they actually care to be attracted to men, right? In some way that is not just physical. Right? Whereas men more often focus on the physical, both straight and gay men, right? So they're like, okay, you're here, I have power over you, I'm interested in this. And so there's that portion of it that it relates to men. The more important portion relates to power. And so however much power you have, and the reason that in the 60s, 70s, et cetera, they had more power is because women had incredible difficulty breaking into industries. There was almost no women in those industries. And in order to get past the gatekeepers, these guys had disproportionate power. And unfortunately, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The reason it happens more in Hollywood as well, and sometimes in politics, is because there is very few jobs in those industries. There's only a couple of dozen great acting jobs per year, especially in the old days, there were less movies that were being made. So, and same for fashion, same for music. And if you were a gatekeeper in that time, well, you had this absolute power in a sense. And that is why now looking back at it, we shouldn't be surprised at how much it was abused.
Yeah, it's depressing. All right, one more story before we go to break. Some are questioning whether or not there is a huge double standard when it comes to this issue of sexual harassment and sexual assault in the entertainment industry. Now, Harvey Weinstein has gotten a lot of justified criticism and backlash for decades of victimizing women in the industry. However, recently, Ellen DeGeneres shared something on Twitter that is making some men raise an eyebrow, okay? So she wanted to celebrate Katy Perry's birthday by posting a photo, and the photo shows her staring at Katy Perry's breasts. And then her tweet says, "Happy birthday, Katy Perry. It's time to bring out the big balloons."
Get it?
Yeah, clever, okay.
All right.
So now here's the backlash that Ellen DeGeneres got. Example number one was Piers Morgan, and he said the following: "If a man made this joke, Ellen would lead the cries of sexist pig."
But you don't know that at all. So I'm sure that a lot of people would say that that was sexist if a guy did it, but would Ellen lead cries of sexist pig? There's no evidence to that effect at all.
I feel like Ellen goes out of her way to not ever say anything controversial, which is why it's interesting that she thought that tweet was a good idea. I actually half agree with the criticism that, not half agree, I agree with the criticism she's getting. Unfortunately, I think that the criticism is coming from dudes who want to make excuses for men who do this, right?
I have a completely different take, which is gonna get me in more trouble, but keep going on other reactions.
And then Michael Rappaport says, "Me, femme, you support women sexualizing other women? If that was me in the pic and tweet, I'd be done." And he continues to say, "Imagine if Cam Newton or any other man sent out this tweet and photo." Okay, and then, so just to kind of clarify what I meant when I say that this criticism is unfortunately coming from dudes who want to make excuses for themselves, Brooklyn Bookworm perfectly laid it out. She says, "You're not a woman, let's start there. You're not upset about her being sexualized, you're upset you as a man can't do it without backlash." And so when it comes from that place, that's when it rubs me the wrong way. But I think the underlying point is accurate, right? Like, I put myself in Katy Perry's shoes. I don't know how Katy Perry feels about it, but thinking about myself in that position, I would not be amused by that tweet. I don't care if it's Ellen, I don't care how lovable she is. Like, don't put out a picture staring at my breasts and then talk about the big balloons. Like, I just wouldn't like it.
Okay, so let me zig and zag here. First off, Brooklyn Bookworm's response to Rappaport is probably true, right? That mainly guys are going, how come we don't get to do it, right? Now, but I'm a little biased in favor of Rappaport for a couple reasons. One, he did a great anti-Trump video the other day, okay? Two, I super randomly ran into him at a hotel in LA, and I kind of like the guy, and I liked his acting. Okay, so I'm just telling you what my biases are. So I also agree with Rappaport, though, when he says you support women sexualizing other women. If that was me in that pic and tweet, I'd be done. He would be. People would be super pissed.
Yeah, he's right about that.
He is right about that, right? So, okay, now what's my opinion? Here comes the controversy. Look, in that picture, it isn't just her breasts. She wore a dress that shows a ton of cleavage. So, and Katy Perry, to be fair to her, hasn't been the one saying, I'm outraged. If she said, I'm outraged, I'd say, well, I'm not sure I agree, okay? You wear that dress, doesn't mean don't go crazy on me. You can't touch her, you can't do anything non-consensual, you can't say she had it coming, you can't say any of that, it's terrible, etc. But if someone looks, you can't go, oh, how dare you? Come on.
I know, Cenk, and I agree with you on that. But this is not just, oh, someone looked. Like, it's not like someone snapped a picture of Ellen like candidly like glancing at her breasts. This is Ellen purposely staring at her breasts and making a spectacle about it on social media. Like, it's just, it's not okay. It's not. Like, and I get it. Like, I know that if I'm gonna be scantily clad, people are gonna look, right? And I'm not gonna blame them for doing that. I'm not gonna be outraged if they do that, you know? But at the same time, it doesn't give them the right to just completely disrespect me in any way that they choose. You know what I'm saying?
But is that disrespecting her? I don't know. I mean, look, and it's hard for me to relate. It's hard for me to relate because I'm a guy. So I have body parts that are amazing. My rock hard ass, my monstrous triceps, people know this, okay? And if people looked at it and said, wow, that is amazing, I'd be flattered. I know it's different, that's why I'm saying.
Different.
I know, right? But, and we're all putting thoughts into Katy Perry's head, she hasn't said a word about this, right? So I'm just telling you that I'm not offended by what Ellen did. And I know that people would be offended if a guy did it. And that is a hypocrisy or a double standard that's worth pointing out a little bit. And
the word offended offends me at this point, right? Like, I'm so tired of like, oh, this is offensive. I'm offended by this. Who cares if we're offended or not? That doesn't matter, right? Whether we're offended doesn't matter. What matters is that there is a double standard. And if a dude did this, it would be considered unacceptable. If a woman does it, it's cute. And by the way, she's not a straight woman either, right? So she has the same, sexual desires that men would when it comes to Katy Perry being, scantily clad, I guess. And so it's just, again, whether I'm offended or not doesn't matter. I think that double standard exists, and if we're gonna hold people in any industry at a certain standard, that standard should apply to both genders. That's what I'm saying.
I hear you.
Okay. All right, I'm tired of talking about sexual assault.
I know.
So let's take a break and come back and talk about other things.
Like Nazis.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, I'm reading some of the comments on a YouTube video I did. What's a cuck? Go.
Brett has a cat. I'm moving away from the controversial stuff we were discussing prior to this going live to talking about pussy. Because it's a pussy cat.
Here's the thing, I think that cats are dumber. Everyone thinks that cats are smarter because they found a way to just like not care about you and have a home and food.
Right.
But cats are stupid. They're like children. Like cats, everything they do, it's like, cat, do you want to take a bath right now?
Yeah.
Because you're fucking gross. And they're like babies and like toddlers. We're like, no, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
I just lick it. And you're like, are you sure that's a good idea? Because I think you might get hair caught in your throat. And the cat's like, no, it's fine.
Ugh.
They're stupid. And then like they're just like babies where it's like I pooped I pooped and then it's like, did you want to poop outside? No, I poop here, it's fine because I bury it. Like they're idiots. They're like children. And then dogs are like husbands in sitcoms.
Why?
Where they're just like, listen, when do we eat? And I love you for that. Also, I'm gonna try to have sex with you. If you don't want it right now, just roll up a newspaper and hit me.
That's so true. Although Charlie never tries to hump me, always tries to hump Christian. But you know what?
Are you jealous by that?
No, I'm not jealous. I just think it's interesting because I think Charlie might be a gay dog and I love him no matter what.
I went to Kentucky Fried Chicken when I first got my license, like 17 years old or 17, 18, whatever it was. And I'm driving, I think my dad's Oldsmobile. And I parked it in a place where there was 2 cars next to me, really tight spot, and a car behind me. I don't even know how I got in there because I'm a terrible driver. Back then I was an even worse driver. And on the roads I'm okay, but in parking spots, I have terrible spatial reasoning and I'm a mess. And on my way out, I hit all 3 cars at once. I broke all records, okay? So I went, as I'm backing out, I went boom, oh shit. And this side hit that car, this side hit this car, and the back hit the 3rd car, okay? And I got stuck. I didn't know how to get out. Like I went, okay, this, and then I'm like, no, and then, right? And then finally I had to stop, go inside the KFC and go, I'm sorry, I hit a bunch of your cars. They're like, what do you mean a bunch of your cars? I'm like, I don't know.
Wow, there's a B?
Yeah, I'm like, I hit 3 cars, I don't know. So you guys gotta come help me, okay? Okay, so 1, my bad, really sorry about that. Okay, number 2, can someone take my car out? Because I don't wanna keep hitting your cars and I'm incapable of taking it out of this spot. All right, back on the Young Turks. 3 quick tweets for you guys. Jeff Waldorf says, leave it to TYT to make me feel bad about Kevin Sorbo. This is unacceptable. Glad he spoke out.
By the way, real quick, I don't want to add it to the coverage of that story because it would have been inappropriate. You know that he and Sean Hannity did a movie together called Let There Be Light or something. It's like about Jesus, like a Jesus movie.
Oh my God. Now you're gonna make me go watch it just so we should get high and watch it. Oh my God, that would be so funny. All right, now on a serious note, Mixed Pancake says, these stories make me so sick. What the fuck is wrong with people? Scott Remington says, not excusing GHW Bush, but my grandpa got Alzheimer's at about his age and went from a quiet, decent man to slightly lecherous. Now, we don't know that that's what's happening, right?
Yeah, we don't.
And we were just talking about this. Bill Clinton is the first president where the press was like, screw it, we're gonna tell everybody about your affairs. There was a ton of rumors that HW was having affairs in the White House. But back then, the press never said it. So
boys will be boys.
Right. So that's how he might have skated on a lot of that and might have nothing to do with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And we don't know that he has that. Okay, anyway, member shout outs, Blake Mitchell and Emily Bervaler. Okay, sorry, Emily, did the best I could. Post game today, how did I get my ass grabbed? It was in the middle of an assault. It's a story some of you know, some of you don't. It'll be fun.
Okay.
And then the F word. Let's talk about the F word too. What does my son think the F word is? Okay, fun, cutesy story. tytnetwork.com/join to become a member. All right, what's next?
All right. Reddit has launched its newest wave of community bans. They are wiping out certain subreddits that they believe incite violence or lead to certain forms of hate speech. Now, people are not happy about this, especially considering the fact that Reddit had already done something similar back in 2015, and people who like to engage in this type of rhetoric feel like their speech is being attacked. Now, Reddit's leadership is taking aim at content and groups that incite violence, and the first group the groups to fall are Nazi and Nazi sympathizing subreddits. Okay, so they released a statement about this, and they wanted to clarify what they meant in regard to subreddits or communities that are unacceptable on the platform. They said that going forward, we will take action against any content that encourages, glorifies, incites, or calls for violence or physical harm against an individual or a group of people. Likewise, we will also take action against content that glorifies or encourages the abuse of animals. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. This applies to all content on Reddit, including memes. So, so far, as we film this video, they have done away with 18 communities, and that includes Nazi, European nationalism, and Pol. Those are the subreddits that we're talking about. Pol is apparently some sort of extension of 4chan, so you can understand what kind of conversations would take place on that kind of subreddit.
Yeah, so they also got rid of sex with horses. Which actually is part of my point. As usual, Reddit is a private company. They can do whatever they want, and it's not a First Amendment issue. B, if someone doesn't want sex with horses on their website, come on, you got to be able to understand that, right? So they're not in favor of bestiality, and they're not in favor of Nazis, and they're certainly not in favor of encouraging violence. So I think it's the right move. I think they have every right in the world to do that, but I do want to draw a distinction here. The Daily Stormer, which is a neo-Nazi website, which is atrocious, horrible, terrible, etc., has been rejected by several web companies, and now they're in the dark web. And the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which fights for internet freedom, disagrees with that, and I agree with them. I think that is a different situation because that is their own website, and it's not allowed to be on the regular internet. Now, it's not necessarily a government issue, so I'm not saying it's unconstitutional. I just don't agree with that policy.
Right, but now you're talking about, various providers, like, where you would go buy a URL or an online address for your website. Now you're essentially, you're not pressuring them because you're not saying that they should face any type of legal ramification, right? But those are private businesses as well. GoDaddy, for instance, they get to make a decision. If they don't want to host that website, they don't have to host that website.
No, I know that is absolutely true legally, and it is a super hard decision because, they're Nazis, right? So it's very understandable why GoDaddy or any other company wouldn't want to be associated with them in any way, shape, or form. But if every one of those companies does that, but then they start to expand a little bit and go, okay, well then I also don't like this kind of content, and I also don't like that kind of content. That's a dangerous precedent. And so all I'm saying is I disagree with the web hosting companies for blocking Daily Stormer. It's the world's worst website. I disagree with everything on it, but I think it should be allowed on the regular internet. That is a different case than Reddit, where Reddit it has every right in the world to say, this is my website, and I don't want horse sex and Nazis on my website.
Yeah, we're 100% in agreement with the Reddit situation. The one other concern that I wanted to bring up though is, look, this type of ideology and speech doesn't just go away after these people get banned, right? The conversation keeps going, which is why the Daily Stormer now operates in the dark web. And I think my fear is, the more their speech gets suppressed, the more, I guess, defiant they'll become and angry they'll become. Like, I feel like it'll fuel them, which is, counter to what people want to achieve. So that's one of the things that I see as a problem.
Yeah, and look, there's good arguments to be made on both sides of that. Some studies say that if you ban the racially offensive or hate speech or whatever, you get less of it, and that's an overall good thing. Others say you push things into the dark corners, and that's where it festers and gets worse and acts out in more counterproductive ways. I don't know the answer to that. I do know that I'm not afraid of more speech, and the Nazis are not going to win an intellectual battle. Okay, it's just not going to happen.
Really? I thought they were really smart people.
Oh yeah, I know. A lot of the far right think that they're geniuses. Yeah, well, you see, white people are better than black people.
No.
I'm not racist though.
No, but like the new wave of Nazis, they like find a couple like phrases that they think sound smart, and then they use it over and over again, like straw man argument. Like, I'm smart, I know what a straw man argument is. And I just accuse everything and everyone who disagrees with me of straw manning me.
A couple of people taught me the Scotsman's fallacy, and I use it.
Oh, it's so good every time.
Okay, anyway. So, all right. Unfortunately, now we're out of time. All right, okay, now look guys, we are gonna come back for the online audience because there's two stories I really love and I wanna tell you guys about. One is how Tesla is kind of ridden to the rescue in Puerto Rico. And I just think it's so smart of them and shows you what the future can be and not one filled with fossil fuels. And then an explanation of religious phenomenon that have happened throughout the centuries, and everybody always said, "Oh my God, Washington, it's a miracle," right?
Yeah.
And in reality, it turns out it's not a miracle; it's a medical condition. To which I say, "Of course," but I'll say that during the show. All right, so you'll hear me sometimes do this at the end of a show, especially for the radio audience, and we love you guys on Sirius Satellite Radio. Because we only have a minute left, we can't squeeze another story in. So let me just tell you the wonderful things that are possible here. First, if you want to get the whole show, and a lot of the live audience, whether it's online or the radio, of course don't get to hear the whole show, but you can download it or stream it, get it anytime you want if you're a member. That's why I tell you about it, because if you like the show, that's a great way. People use it obviously when they're driving, jogging, etc., etc. So this tytnetwork.com/join. You get the whole 2-hour Young Turks ad-free, and you get all the other network shows. So the post-game show we just told you about, where I'm gonna tell you about the ass-grabbing incident in my case, the aggressive progressive, old school, so many of the other network shows like What the Flick. We're just trying to give you more while you guys also support independent media. So tytnetwork.com/join. All right, we love you guys, and for the online audience, stay right here on tytnetwork.com, and we'll be right back with those two stories.
that music not make you want to bang your head against the wall? Like,
wow, for good reason. That sounds really painful. Okay, 2 stories left for you guys.
All right. Tesla has come to the rescue in Puerto Rico. In fact, they have created a power infrastructure in order to allow a children's hospital in Puerto Rico to finally operate again. Now, Tesla has used its solar panels and batteries to restore reliable electricity at San Juan's Hospital del Niño, it's a children's hospital, in what company founder Elon Musk calls the first of many solar battery Tesla projects going live in Puerto Rico. Now, remember, earlier this week we did a story about how, unfortunately, Puerto Rico agreed to a $300 million contract with a company, a small utility company called Whitefish, based out of Montana. And it seems like there was some corruption that led to that deal. But in this case, Tesla is donating the solar panels and the batteries necessary to allow this hospital to operate again. Now, the hospital's new system allows it to generate all the energy it needs. No fossil fuels, no waste. It's renewable energy. They're donating it for the time being, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and so until they get back up on their feet, and then they're going to decide if they're going to do a long-term contract, because it's not free forever, but it is free for now, and it allows them to serve 35 permanent residents with chronic conditions, 3,000 young patients that use the hospital, and after the energy crisis is over, then they're going to discuss whether it should be permanent. But I love it for a number of reasons. One is, as Trump is going around going like, nobody knew that things were going to be this complicated, right? I mean, I'd give myself an A+ for this. But he's bumbling around and doing the corruption with Whitefish, etc. Meanwhile, Elon Musk comes in and goes, "I got this, dog." Okay.
Yeah.
And boom, they're right back up. And by the way, look, from time to time I say on the show I'm a capitalist. This is the upside of capitalism.
Yep.
And now, look, I don't want to get too deep into an economic conversation about how companies are structured, but here's a company who's innovated and done a great job of doing innovation that might actually save the planet at some point. And even if you're going to be cynical about it, they're sophisticated enough to know it's great PR. And it is. You know what? Helping people is good PR. And that's not a criticism. That's great. If you want to get more good PR by actually helping people in need, that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I love this. I love the fact that they utilized renewable energy, which is to be expected with Tesla, considering their entire business model is based on saving the planet and doing better without using fossil fuels. But I just like that there's some degree of humanity here, which I feel like is lacking in all conversations that we've been having on the show recently, and to finally see like an uplifting, positive story makes me happy.
Yeah, by the way, they're not the only company. Google's parent company, Alphabet, has also deployed balloons in an unfortunately named Project Loon. And the reason is that is providing both phone and internet connections so that people can get in touch with their family members that they were separated from. And so that's also good PR, good humanitarian thing to do, good technology, etc. And look, at some point, this renewable energy stuff, I hope, saves the planet. And I think there's a good chance that it will. And not only just it's good for the planet, but it's also great for the economy. The renewable energy industry is adding jobs at a rate 12 times the rest of the country. So if a lot of subsidies go to the fossil fuel companies, which is maddening, and they're not creating new jobs. Coal companies are not creating new jobs. The renewable energy is creating new jobs and doing right for the world. So it's a rare win-win, and thrilled to see it.
Yes. All right, now let's talk about the apocalypse, because it's coming. All right. A woman in Italy is sweating blood. No, this is not a fake news story. No, it is not the end of the world. No, it is not the second coming of God. But what we do know is that this is an incredibly rare condition that has occurred in dozens of cases previously. But here's what we know. The bleeding has no clear apparent trigger and can happen while the woman is asleep or during physical activity. The bleeding becomes more intense, she told doctors, during times of stress, and in episodes can last 1 to 5 minutes. So let's go to graphic 31 so you can see what this looks like. It's a little graphic, I guess. If blood makes you uncomfortable, be warned. But that's what it looks like when she starts sweating blood. But what's even more amazing is that even though it has this sweat-like appearance, it doesn't appear to come from her sweat glands, okay? So again, this is an incredibly rare condition. There were dozens of instances in the past, but very little is known about it. So it's unclear what's causing it. In previous episodes, what would happen is an individual would experience it for X amount of years and then it would go away. They would never experience it again. So it's super fascinating, and it also has a very long and complicated word that I am not gonna try to pronounce.
I'm right there with you, sister.
Yeah.
Okay, so now for the skeptical, which included the doctors, and that's why it was not reported very often earlier, they're like, oh yeah, she's just cut. No, it's from different parts of her body, and there is no cut or gash. And so when this was absolutely confirmed in her case, they went back and found out that there was actually several dozen cases, which is actually very, very small in a planet of over 7 billion people, but real, several dozen cases since the year 2000. And then when you go back in history, actually this has happened many times, and might be somewhat related to the story of Jesus Christ. And even Aristotle wrote about something like this happening in the 3rd century BC. And in the past, sometimes doctors would dismiss it because they think, oh, it's a person who's trying to, say they're having a religious thing, etc. No, it turns out it's a real condition, often caused by stress.
Yep.
And they last anywhere from a month to 4 years, and then it doesn't happen again. And I love this story for a number of reasons. One, hashtag science. We can figure things out. There are real answers. You don't have to believe in superstition. But two, that gets to a larger issue. Look, people believed in religion and those old stories because they didn't have science. So they had to make up stuff. Originally, in our religious texts, it said that the stars were little pinpricks in heaven, that it was like a black sheet over heaven, but little holes there, and heaven was shining through.
It's not that.
Turns out, not remotely close. And the Adam and Eve, and the woman comes from the guy's Eve, and the serpent and the apple. Dude, they were guessing, they were making up fantasy stories. The Greeks made up different fantasy stories. The Persians made up different fantasy stories, and the ones we made up stuck around for a couple of thousand years. And you think it's forever, but it's not. It's only 2,500 years that these particular stories have been around where people genuinely believe them, right?
Yep.
And eventually you're gonna find out, oh, the bleeding from the hands is not some sort of like, oh, Lord Jesus, sky God,
Exactly, which is why we all need to start believing in astrology, because that has a lot of scientific backing.
That's a story we did yesterday where some millennials are turning to astrology.
Right.
No, you don't have to go to new superstition.
No, you
hashtag
don't.
science.
By the way, I feel like I did not clarify this enough when we covered that story, so let me clarify something. I have no negative feelings whatsoever toward people in the Wiccan community, okay? At all. Like, people think that I'm hating. I am not hating, okay? I know you guys are good people. Please don't think that I'm judging or hating. I just, when it comes to astrology, please don't assume that you know me based on what my sign is, because it makes me crazy.
Okay. And I want everybody to understand that I am not hating on the bleeding community, okay? You just have a condition, we don't know what it is, but don't worry, science is on it, okay?
Man, that is a pain in the ass for your bed sheets. Like, you're gonna
among the different problems you have,
and your clothes, you're gonna stain everything. Blood's really hard to get out of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, it's understandable that however long ago, including 100 years ago, including 50 years ago, that when that started happening, people were like, oh, of course, this means that God is communicating with you and you're holy and you're an angel and blah, 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 or you're the devil, blah, blah, blah. And when the eclipse happens, they're like, oh, of course, Quetzalcoatl has come back. The great dragon is here, right? Just give us a little bit of time. We're gonna figure all this stuff out.
Yeah.
Believe in science. That's the one thing you should believe in. Okay, we're out of time, folks. We do have a great post game for you. F words. Ass grabbing that was wrong of me and in the middle of an assault, but I'm amused by, so that's a weird story. So tytnetwork.com/join. Bye-bye.